And we're back.
Here we are. I think we are back now. Fantastic. Rob, let's bring him back. And apologies to you, apologies to Chloe. Thank you for everyone for hanging with us. You're going to get a big 2-part show today. So we'll proceed with our second part.
Yeah, but where is it? Like, is it a new link on Rumble or is
it's still we're still on the same link on Rumble. It might be a different X link, but I'll merge all these together later. It does seem quite strange to me that this happens within minutes of us talking about Nick Fuentes. So.
it
Yes,
does.
Has
this happened before?
It happens.
His people
not
do
just
that,
with him,
Let's
but
not say the F word again. Okay?
Whenever we talk about any controversial topic, there is a tendency for us to fall
the N-word
offline
or the F
magically.
word together.
The
okay, no N-words and no F-words.
And
the NF word, we'll
really,
say.
the word we had before was if we said ivermectin or hydroxychloroquine, we would get knocked off. Then if we said anything about vaccines, we would get knocked off. Now it's NF. So we will refer to him as that from now on. But what we were talking about before the, and I'm going to bring Chloe in here just a second to join this conversation. But
I said shock jock, and you said it's a reincarnation of that.
Well, what I said was I've met a lot of shock jocks, and whether it was Bubba the Love Sponge or, I'm forgetting my friend in Chicago and Howard, all these guys.
Tom Cigar said Bubba the Love Sponge.
Yeah, they all had a point of view, and they had for sure an ethical compass that they might have been pressing the limits of it, but they were not interested in telling somebody else how to live their life. This is such a different thing, and nor were they interested in getting people. That era was about pushing back on things, on the restraints of a previous generation. Now it seems like some sort of weird game that has very high stakes, and I don't know, it feels dangerous to me.
Yeah, well, one of the interesting things about this individual we've been discussing is he does try to tell people to live their lives a certain way, but then he himself won't do it. So, one of the things that Piers Morgan pressed him on is some clip of him saying, you should avoid Black people. And then in his own life, again, he has friends. So is he actually is he actually a racist or is he not? He's telling his followers, he's promoting this, toxic vision of racism, but then he himself is not even abiding by it. So, and I don't think that, the shock jocks, these radio hosts in past eras were doing things like that, of telling their listeners to do something and then they themselves doing the opposite.
No, they would lead the band, so to speak. Let's bring Chloe in here to join you and I. Rob, if you don't mind sticking around, I want to keep this conversation going. And since we're a 2-part show, we'll be a 3-host or a 2-guest, 1-host system. Chloe is Dr. Chloe Carmichael, clinical psychologist. You can follow her on Dr. Chloe, CHLOE on X. Dr. Chloe, yes? Is that correct?
No, it's Dr. Chloe _.
Oh, Dr. Chloe _ There it is. Okay, I couldn't see it. drchloe.com, freespeechtoday.com. And again, the book is Can I Say That? Why Free Speech Matters and How to Use It Fearlessly. Speaking of fearless use of free speech, I'm going to be unable to actually be fearless today because we might get knocked off the system. So we will refer to our subject as NF. And so my question to you, Chloe, is Rob onto something when she says he doesn't have a stable sense of himself?
Yes. Rob and I were talking about that. And I was saying, I totally agree about the stable sense of self thing, because I feel like Nick, or that person's development, might have been kind of frozen in time when he was, banned from the airwaves at the age of 18. And the age of 18 is a time just developmentally when we're normally, the sense of identity is fluid. And so, people kind of find themselves and their personalities on camera when you are in the media, especially when part of what you're bringing to the table is your sense of thought. So, Rob, I think you're really onto something. He doesn't seem to have a stable sense of self, and it might be like an arrested development thing from when he was banned 10 years ago. It's like he's frozen in time.
And something that Rob and I believe spoke about last time he was in here, one of the unfortunate sort of liabilities of adolescence is a tendency toward the dark triad. And the dark triad has been quite prevalent these days. And I'm beginning to wonder how many of our political appointees and on either side, frankly, are succumbing to or have this as a liability, so to speak. Rob, is it getting worse? Is it getting better?
I think it's probably getting worse in the age of the social media influencer era, where a lot of the attention economy relies on saying outlandish things, saying things to please your audience. There's Chloe and I were speaking about this idea of audience capture earlier. You see elevated levels of dark triad traits in public figures. And I think you've done some original research on this, Dr. Drew, for celebrities and so on, with the narcissism issue. But you see this as well with psychopathy and Machiavellianism. I think that this individual NF, he probably has elevated levels of Machiavellianism. One of the characteristics of Machiavellianism is strategic duplicity. Where you're a different person depending on who you're trying to please, who you're trying to ingratiate yourself with. Coleman Hughes wrote an excellent piece in the Free Press about him, about how there are sort of two versions of this individual depending on whether he's hosting his own show versus whether he's guesting on someone else's show. So I think it's not just the narcissism, but also maybe this Machiavellianism as well.
Unless it is weird conscious game theory of some type. Chloe, are you seeing more stuff in the practice that concerns you in terms of character construct?
Yeah, I think that it's really hard to stay integrated in your personality when, as you and Rob were discussing earlier, we have to mask and self-censor so many parts of ourselves. And, Dr. Drew, you were referencing this earlier as well. I think that we can almost start to dissociate from parts of ourselves if we feel like we have to mask them to enough people. Like you said, it was almost like a hypnosis. And so at the same time that we've seen this incredible spike in cancel culture, we've also seen, and I discuss this in my book, a quadruple in the Google searches for the word authenticity. So it's almost like a borderline split where on one level, people are craving authenticity. And then on the other level, they're terrified, of being authentic. And I feel like it's almost like the perfect storm for Mr. NF, right? He's kind of almost like a borderline himself where he'll take this one little bit of truth. Like it's not that everything he says is completely nuts. And so he'll take this one little bit of truth and then kind of latch onto it and pull this thread and get you to almost kind of follow what he's saying and say, well, you know what, maybe this guy isn't. And then, oh, wow, he said what? But then he'll take it back and he'll spin it around. It's very slippery.
I've noticed that in the young males in particular, I don't know exactly what they want or exactly what's deficient, but in fact, when we were at Tim Pool's place, if you remember, couple of the young males there we want spiritual guidance. I wasn't quite sure. Really, that moment. Do you remember that moment? It stayed with me till now, and I still don't know exactly what they. Yeah, I don't know what they were asking for, but I was shocked. I was shocked at their sincerity and how much they wanted that. And that is so, I think part of the reason that they're not getting it is my generation did not want that from the older generation. Quite the opposite. We wanted them to stay out of our business. And it seems like they really are looking for some sort of guidance that we are not delivering.
Young men are leading the charge back to the conservative church, right? I think we've probably all seen the polls suggesting that. And it was the male Trump voters as well that prioritized number one is a desire to have children. So again, that's where I can see where certain, divisive figures can latch on to a genuine need. That's another thing NF really promotes, right? Is, a return to, strict Catholicism and things like that. And I thought Tucker Carlson actually had a really interesting exchange with him as well, where he said, well, is this or that view of yours actually necessarily really Christian then? And that gave him a little bit of a pause. Anyway, I don't want to continue to just talk only about him, but it is an interesting point, as you said, when we look at young men and what's going on with them.
What I'd like to do, I think, is take a little break right here, and I do want to talk about, the young males that follow NF, and what that means, and how these movements have a way of it can get out of control in ways that are hard to predict, and it worries me. But young men, I think we need to kind of talk about that. But I want, Chloe, you to talk to Rob a little bit when we get back about the capture of psychology and psychology training. I don't think a lot of people are aware of that. And the first time I really heard it vividly was from you and Naomi at Tim Pool's. And I wonder, is that something that, when we get back, you tell me, is that something that there's an increasing awareness of? Is it something that people are pushing back against effectively? In the world of, I don't know, there seems like, as Rob called it, the vibes shift. I'm wondering if that is, and finally protecting the training of clinicians as well. Rob Henderson, Chloe Carmichael, we'll get back with you all right after this. I'm excited to bring you a new product, a new supplement, Fatty. I take it, I make Susan take it, my whole family takes it. This comes out of, believe it or not, dolphin research. The Navy maintains a fleet of dolphins, and a brilliant veterinarian recognized that these dolphins sometimes developed a syndrome identical to our Alzheimer's disease. Those dolphins were deficient in a particular fatty acid. She replaced the fatty acid, and they didn't get the Alzheimer's. Humans have the same issue, and we are more deficient in this particular fatty acid than ever before. And a simple replacement of this fatty acid called C15 will help us prevent these syndromes. It's published in a recent journal called Metabolites. It's a new nutritional C15, pentadecanoic acid, it's called. The deficiency that we are developing for C15 creates something called the cellular fragility syndrome. This is the first nutritional deficiency syndrome to be discovered in 75 years and may be affecting us in many ways, and as many as 1 in 3 of us. This is an important breakthrough. Take advantage of it. Go to fatty15.com/Dr. Drew to receive 15% off a 90-day starter kit subscription, or use code Dr. Drew at checkout for that 15% off, or just go to our website, drdrew.com/fatty15. If there was ever a time to be rationally ready, it is now. I urge you to consider getting one of the emergency kits from the Wellness Company, because TWC has 7 different kits that are customized for a variety of situations. Wouldn't be a bad idea to take a look at each, considering, say, what we've just been through in California with the fires. I was happy to have the field kit on hand, and the Contagion kit in particular is suited for what is being predicted to be the next outbreak, or avian or bird flu. Of course, the same experts from the COVID era are freaking out about this potential pandemic, but don't panic. Just arm yourself with the meds you might need if this comes to pass. Contagion Emergency Kit contains ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, azithromycin, Tamiflu, and budesonide, an inhaler that is good for airway reactivity and tightness, as well as reducing viral replication in the airways. Go to drdrew.com/TWC for 10% off your purchase. And reminder, you've probably seen the headlines. U.S. debt is projected to reach $40 trillion by 2026. That could mean more inflation and less buying power for you. Our friends at Augusta Precious Metals have put together an extremely important 3-minute report about how Americans can protect their retirement accounts from skyrocketing national debt with physical gold and silver. Go to drdrew.com/gold. That is drdrew.com/GOLD. Or text the word Drew to 35052. That's 35052. Get instant access today. They're interested in educating you about options. My guests are Rob Henderson. You can follow Rob on X, Rob K. Henderson, and Dr. Chloe Carmichael, Dr. Dr. Chloe _. And before the break, I was talking about how there's been a capture of clinical training in psychology. And somebody during the break said something about propaganda and branding. And I started thinking to myself, and I've had this thought a few times lately, there are so many things here I am late in life, and there are so many things I've realized that I have just a thought were real, that I'm realizing now, by so many things, I mean now most things, were really just the product of Mad Men-esque, Don Draper style propaganda campaigns that have me eating certain things and using certain detergents and driving certain cars. And I feel like that phenomenon has run amok and gotten into everything now, including clinical training. Chloe.
Yeah, for sure. It's incredible. I think the ratio right now of liberal to conservative faculty in psychology departments is 20-1. And any type of a skew like that is not good, whether it be conservative to liberal or the other way. So you had asked earlier, Dr. Drew, like, has there been a vibe shift to the point where maybe things are going to change in these programs? I don't think so, because that level 20-1, I think, has created a groupthink environment. And one of the ingredients of groupthink, as I share in my book, is what's called direct pressure upon dissenters. So people are not comfortable, as Rob was saying earlier, to speak up. And my own profession, the mental health field, we're 90% plus liberal identifying. And since free speech right now is coded as a right issue, this means that speaking up about, hey, maybe women really can't become men, or, maybe it's, really actually racist, some of our, quote, cultural sensitivity programs or whatever. People just don't feel comfortable. I did not feel comfortable to speak up. I sang a little song to get through my program, and that was, 15 years ago. So I wish it were getting better, but I don't see the conditions for that happening yet.
Rob, were you aware of that?
Yeah, I have friends who are clinicians, and I have one friend who's going through a PsyD program. He tells me, yeah, it's exactly as Chloe is describing, where there's an overwhelming pressure to conform to a certain kind of political outlook, and people don't like when you deviate from it. There's kind of two interesting ratios here. The gender, there's the political ratio of 20 plus liberal to conservative, and then within psychology, it's it wouldn't surprise me if it was 10-1 female to male as well. And I sometimes wonder if this is one contributing factor among obviously many others for why a lot of young guys are struggling, as a lot of these professions are becoming more and more female dominated, and men just, often, so young men, they feel more comfortable communicating their thoughts and their feelings and so forth to men versus women. And, if they feel like they're going to be judged both for their political views, but then also for having, whatever gendered views, that are typical
toxic
of a young
masculinity.
Man. Right. That, they'll just sort of stew in silence or get funneled into these toxic online platforms where, instead of getting help, they instead seek,
that's
kind of material.
Fear. That's the fear of NF and Nick's whole thing. That's the fear we have, is that it's going to spiral into something unforeseen, which is very, very concerning. But I do want to go from this topic. And by the way, Chloe, I have a family member who's in some psychological training, and I think I'm seeing things better for this person in terms of he was used to complain about it, and he was kind of joking about it. And lately it's been more about the facts of clinical training, which is hard enough. Let's just get that down. Right? Yeah. Am I buzzing again? Is my mic on? Everybody hear me? Okay.
I hear you.
But Rob, you wrote a piece about women and monogamy, which I thought would be an interesting way to spin out of what we were just discussing. And Chloe probably has not read that, and certainly the audience may not have. So just kind of frame that briefly, and I'm going to get Chloe's reaction to it.
Is this the girl boss gatekeeping idea here? Danny Silikowski's work?
It was you, more about monogamy and how men were driving some of this stuff, right? But there was a misconception that women were also driving it. Okay,
interesting. So monogamy in particular.
Hang on, let me make sure it's your article, not. This is your Substack. I'm going to give you the X. It was a Business Insider article, and you commented on it on X. Of course, it's the woman here driving non-monogamous relationship.
Oh,
and
an
you
X
said,
post, not a
if you
Substack.
look at the survey, survey, men are 3 times more likely than women to support non-monogamy relationship, et cetera. And it's been my experience that it's usually somebody who's not into that person dragging that person into an open relationship just to avoid being alone.
Yeah. Well, whenever you see media outlets with ideas like, polyamory, living in a polycule or a throuple or some kind of an open relationship, usually in the media, it's a woman who is leading this idea and dragging her husband along, or positioning herself as the one who wanted this. But then when you look at the actual survey data, men are 3 times more likely than women to be interested in a polyamorous arrangement or an open relationship or swinging or thruples, which, I mean, that's unsurprising given everything we know about differences between men and women and interest in variety and having multiple partners and so on. But because I think that people view, or a lot of people view, sex differences as distasteful, they don't like the fact that men have, kind of different sexuality from women, that the idea is to make men and women exactly the same. So if survey data and everyday common sense indicates that men would be more interested in polyamory or swinging or open relationships, well, then a lot of people would say, well, we need to make women the same way and promote this idea that women are the same as men. And that's why you see a lot of these articles and these ideas of women into polyamory or into, there was an article in New York Magazine, why women are quiet quitting their husbands, and, experimenting and stepping out. And another article from the New York Times, the case for ending a pretty good marriage. And so, I just think there's this discomfort with differences. And so instead you have to reshape the narrative of, okay, well, it's actually women who want this, not men. But often I think when you read the stories of a lot of these women, and if you read a book like, I've spoken about David Buss before, Dr. Drew, David Buss's book, Why Women Have Sex.
I was thinking of him. Yeah. And remember, David Buss was condemned for a while, and now he's back again. He's people are, maybe he had something to say. He's an evolutionary psychologist, Chloe.
Yeah. One of the best evolution. I mean, he was a pioneer in the field, but he co-authored this book with another psychologist, Cindy Meston. The book was called Why Women Have Sex. And, it was interesting because women have sex for, different reasons and often from why men do. But one was this feeling of retaliation, that if their male partner does something that they don't like, that women will often step out of the relationship to get revenge. Men don't really think that way. Men just want sex for its own sake, not necessarily for vengeance. And so when you read the stories, anyway, of a lot of these women who are into polyamory and you dig into their history, you'll find that often it was their husband who cheated on them, or the husband stepped out, or the husband did something they didn't like, and then they will decide to be interested in polyamory, I think, as a way to sort of even the ledger.
Chloe, you talk to people with the door closed. What's your sense of this?
Yeah, I mean, this is so interesting. And I totally agree. There's something, it's called the celebration paradox by someone named Michael Anton, where if you're going to talk about sex differences, it's only okay if you're saying something positive about women, right? So if you said, there's more female judges now and the bench has gotten more compassionate, that's fine. But if you want to say, there's more female judges now and, maybe it's like getting to be a little histrionic, like, well, that's not okay, right, to say. And so I do think that there's that celebration paradox as well here with, the polyamory thing. Like if you want to write about, polyamory and it's a woman doing it, then it's brave and bold. But if it's a man doing it, this toxically masculine guy just wants to, subjugate all these women or whatever. And I saw something similar. You guys are reminding me as well of the Me Too stuff, right? Like where, to your point, Drew, about what I hear behind closed doors, it drove me nuts with Me Too, where this whole believe all women thing, because I sat with women that literally told me that they were going to fabricate a sexual harassment claim to get what they want. I sat with men who told me that they were being victimized by women who did this. And I sat with women who a decade earlier had made up a rape charge to get out of a unfortunate sex experience accountability. And it was just easier. And then years later, they feel terrible with guilt. Like it doesn't fully sink in for them what they did until many years later. So I think it's a fascinating conversation.
Well, there is a phenomenon I'm seeing in social media where women are trying to educate men about this exact phenomenon, that we are pretty naive. We are pretty straightforward. We just don't get it half the time. And that we need to be alert to these differences, and we get manipulated if we're not.
Yeah, totally. But again, it's that weird celebration paradox where if you want to talk about women and sexuality, or, women in work, or women in anything, we can talk about toxic masculinity all day long, but toxic femininity traits, which, is interesting. It's called Marianismo. Yeah. It's super fascinating. Like there's machismo, which everybody talks about, but nobody talks about Marianismo, which is like where you can weaponize your sense of victimhood in order to become manipulative with it. And I think you're right. I think for us to have a whole accountable conversation, we have to be able to talk about that. Otherwise, we get people like NF, who's the only one who's going to just say it, right? So we have to be able to bring these conversations. Then it goes crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. Then it goes sideways, and there's a lot of it sort of feels to me like that whole, when there's a power imbalance, you have to condemn somebody who had historically been in power and empower, which is great, those who had historically been out of power. But that it's gone sort of where it's gone into a little away from the facts, a little away from reality. I'm suspicious.
It's become reactionary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just because there's been a historical power imbalance where maybe a member of one group has historically held more power than a member of another group, people then seem to extrapolate that the person who has power is always in the wrong and the person without power is always in the right. Exactly. Like they've distorted this idea that the person
forever,
right?
Like from now on, forever. That's the way it goes.
Right. Well, the person with less power should be protected and should be heard and so on, and that's all good. Yeah. But that doesn't mean they're always correct, or their account of events is always accurate relative to the person with more power. Like truth still exists regardless of who says it, but people are inclined to say, like with the Me Too thing, with believe all women, except in some cases, even that is thrown out when it's convenient, depending on who the woman is and what her political group might be. Then suddenly you don't. Yeah.
There's another concern. You brought up the truth. I mean, the truth has been under attack for quite some time, and as part of the French psychologists, the French philosophers, what the hell's the name of anyway, there's a whole movement, whether it was
Derrida Foucault, or
all these guys, Derrida, Foucault, and all these guys, the reality didn't really exist. It was all social constructs. And that's post-structuralism. And that is deeply concerning, deeply concerning. We've got to all we have to all come to a consensus that truth exists, that yes, humans can't fully know the truth, but we can ascend to it as best we can. And it has relevance. It's meaningful. The truth is important, but it has lost its importance for quite some time now. And I think we need to bring it back.
Yeah, totally. And that what we're talking about there, the black and white, kind of shift about, the victim and the oppressor. We see that happening with sex, obviously, but I think we also see it happening with race. I mean, did you guys hear about what happened in Portland, right? That this man was acquitted of a stabbing because the victim used the N-word after he was stabbed. Now, I'm not saying he should have done that, but the idea that the stabber, was acquitted over this, I do think it's this, kind of black and white reactionary thing, and that does create a void where, certain kind of crazy voices can step in to fill the space.
Well, and even if you were to agree that there needs to be a scale of justice that gets gets reestablished or something, that some score is settled, so to speak, where do we stop? Where do we go with this? It's getting I don't know. We need to sort of, again, reestablish the truth. Justice is an important thing. I don't know. We're getting this whole notion of defending free speech has gotten me loose-lipped a little bit here, and so I'm trying to talk about topics that we that are hard. They're difficult to talk about, and the three of us. We're trying to get it right. We're not trying to hurt anybody. We're not NF, and we're not in his camp. We're trying to do what's right and good for people.
The NF word, honey.
Yeah, the NF word.
Well, sad.
All right, let me look at the restream here and the chats that are following us. They're very active today. They've been very helpful, actually. Susan, you said, "Oh my God," to something.
No. I was asking people on Rumble who don't watch 90 Day Fiancé if they ever watched it, because that scenario between Gino and Jasmine reminds me of how women manipulate men into thinking, oh, we can have a third partner or whatever. And then the man goes, okay. And then it just falls apart.
What I always say, and Chloe, you tell me if you would disagree or agree with this. And this is not to judge. We're not judging anybody's choices. That is not what we're doing here. But I find there are armies of people and very few really, really good people that can help two people have a good relationship. When you bring a third person in, it becomes exponentially more difficult and maybe impossible. Chloe, what do you say?
Totally. I mean, if you just think about it, we're pair bonders, right? I mean, especially when you look at a cultural context where it's our cultural norm. And so when people are stepping outside of that, I think it usually signifies either that they have, a very strong and unusual, type of sexuality, which is, obviously going to be something for them to, work out in their relationship, or that on a psychological level that they're acting something out, that there's more to it than, just the sex. And so, I think when we glorify and reify those types of relationships, there's a reason behind it. And what really, getting back to the psychology training programs too, like what really gets me, Naomi was talking about this when we were on Tim Pool. I mean, you go to a psych program these days, you're going to be watching kink videos. You're going to be told to be LGBTQIA, Two-Spirit Plus, affirming, blah, 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 blah. But nobody's going to say, by the way, like religious people, let's talk about their interest in abstinence and what are some of the benefits of that. Like nobody's ever going to talk about that at a psychology program. I mean, not even a matter of like giving it equal time. They'll actually pathologize it. They'll say, well, he was from a conservative evangelical household, so very repressive sexuality, right? So, it's to your point, Drew, it's really convoluted when we start mixing in, big academia and big advertising and all this, with government trying to break down the family. I mean, we could go on all night.
Well, but I think that's a kind of a good place to roll to a stop, which is what we're trying to get people to do is to think and to consider their reality and try to ascend to the truth and to pay attention and not to get involved in any mob actions, whether it's on either side, and that bottom up movements can be very dangerous, and we have to be extremely cautious about it. And it looks like the dark triad has been alive and well, and we should know it and call it out where we see it in politics and business, everywhere. It's gravely concerning, and we should all be worried about those young males that want to find their way back and try to help them. So that's my closing comment. I'll let each of you have a closing comment. Rob, I'll start with you.
Well, some of the things you guys have been talking about, it reminds me of this discussion I had with an editor at a magazine. And he told me that the magazine had just run this article about a woman who left her husband to start an OnlyFans and how she was happy with her decision to end her marriage and start an OnlyFans. And I asked this magazine editor, would you run the reverse story of a woman who had an OnlyFans and then abandoned that, got married, and was happy with her decision? And he said, we would never run that story. And when I heard that, it was just confirmation to me that there is kind of a narrative behind a lot of media organizations where...
That's the propaganda. That's Don Draper, alive and well in 2025.
Yeah, that there are certain stories that are acceptable, certain ways of living that are exalted, and others that are denigrated. And this is sort of going out of our way to make people, favor something that could be potentially destructive versus these other ways of living that are more stable, harmonious, stood the test of time. And we need to think more about that and maybe get back to it.
Chloe?
Yeah, thanks. I love this conversation, and to close out with my final thoughts, the thing I want people to know, and I feel like this conversation has illustrated, is that free speech is good for mental health. So that's why I wrote this book. And there's three main ways, which is cognitively. So by us all talking here, and Dr. Drew, like you said, we're just trying to get a little loose-lipped and talk about things and say things that have been taboo that maybe we've been pushing down as a society. And then when we can't speak clearly and have open conversations, it's hard to really get our arms around the facts of like what's really going on. So even just through open dialogue like this, we can start to just, become clear and conscious, like that Tish Hyman, like she's super clear. And then the emotional benefits of free speech, we have emotional regulation. Like it felt good, I think, for us to just connect and say what we really felt. And then the third is the cognitive and emotional. They add up to social support. We have more authentic, high quality social support when we can be real with each other. So thanks for the opportunity to really live that out with you guys tonight.
And both of you, thank you for being here. I know I'll have you back soon. We appreciate you. We'll look for you on X and your Substacks and your books, and you're so meaningfully contributing to the conversation. I hope you're part of what's moving the dial in a healthier direction, because you have good instincts and insights, and you're just trying to get it right, as rather than make people believe a certain way. We're just trying to get to the truth. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Drew.
You betcha. All right, so let us look at what's coming up tomorrow.
So empathetic.
4:00. Chloe. Yes.
Oh my God, it's like
you want her to be
that's such a talent. Like
I know.
How does she do that?
I know.
I don't have that in me. Sorry, kids.
Okay, well,
I tried.
that's my cross to bear. Chris Salcido, Joseph Whitdaring coming back, Del Bigtree and Naomi Wolf on Thursday at the 2:00 show. Then back again with Peter St. Ange and Jay Pelletier. Jennifer Alpert, Marta Byrne and her husband, Shane Cashman, being here. Elizabeth Kucinich. We got a lot of show coming up, rolling into Christmas and the end of the year. We're going to try to keep things going pretty much through the end of the year, but of course we'll take off Christmas and those sorts of days. Susan, anything to add before I wrap this all up?
I just want to tell people who are coming late to the stream, if you start at the beginning, it's going to stop right when we use the NF word, which is short for...
We can use it now, which was Nick Fuentes. We were talking about Nick Fuentes. Because we are wrapping the show up. If we drop off, we will leave it at that.
No, but if you go back to the beginning and it stops, then you can watch it on YouTube, the second half, or Rumble.
Yes,
we lost
Rumble
X.
stitches them together. Rumble's the best out of them all because it actually picks up the stream and pulls it right back in where we ended.
And there were like 1,400 people and they stayed, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, I thought they'd all go away. No, thanks for staying and listening. And then also just tell a friend, and it's in 2 parts. We'll be uploading the whole thing on X at some point, just so it's all together. Sorry, Caleb, you have something else to do on your plate.
Well, that and taking apart this entire top of the line production PC and figuring out what the hell is going on with this thing, because it should never crash. This is like a production grade thing you guys
somebody.
got me. I'm about to.
Well, I don't want to know. But anyways.
We will leave it at that.
Merry Christmas.
We will see you guys tomorrow at 4 p.m. See you then.
Ta-ta.
Ask Dr. Drew is produced by Caleb Nation and Susan Pinsky. Emily Barsh is our content producer. As a reminder, the discussions here are not a substitute for medical care, diagnosis, or treatment. This show is intended for educational and informational purposes only. I am a licensed physician, but I am not a replacement for your personal doctor, and I am not practicing medicine here. Always remember that our understanding of medicine and science is constantly evolving. Though my opinion is based on the information that is available to me today, some of the contents of this show could be outdated in the future. Be sure to check with trusted resources in case any of the information has been updated since this was published. If you or someone you know is in immediate danger, don't call me, call 911. If you're feeling hopeless or suicidal, call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 800-273-8255. You can find more of my recommended organizations and helpful resources at drdrew.com/help.